Another common Venus figurine that we tend to look at is the woman holding a bison horn. Again, identification will be so easy in this chapter. And this is a relief sculpture, meaning that the sculpture is still attached to the stone that it is carved from. So some people look at this as partial sculpture. Really, the difference here between in the round and relief is it still attached to the stone that it's carved from? And in this case, we see a body that looks very, very similar to our Venus of Willendorf, although she's holding a horn. And we're not sure what the horn would represent because there are different things you can do with it. You could blow through a horn to create a sound, but in this direction, it may be something that she drinks, something symbolic. It could be symbolic not just of plenty, that's a very modern interpretation, but it could be reminiscent of the bison that they're out trying to hunt, that are sort of the prime animal that they want to catch. She was once painted with red ochre. Of course, that frequently comes off because they're just mixing the pigment with water. There's no binder, there's no glue, like we see in modern paints, such as gum arabic, etc. So it does tend to flake off. And of course, there's a natural comparison. We want to compare the woman with bison horn to the Venus of Willendorf. And when we look at them, they are very, very similar in form. We have very similar ideas. We see the same characteristics being enhanced. So the breasts, the belly, the thighs being enhanced in both forms. We don't know if the woman holding the bison horn had a face. It's been lost over time. And it's possible she did. And judging from the way that the head is shaped, it may be that she was originally in profile, facing off to your left, facing that horn, which is definitely a possibility. The hands you see very basic in size. The feet are missing again. They probably were very basic. And we see that sort of forced perspective, that drop into the feet. Now, many people will say, well, but this shows that they had plenty of calories at the time, etc. Probably not, because the calories that they're taking in are not the same as what we would have today. Obesity would be very, very difficult in the ancient world. Not impossible, but it would be difficult, especially to these levels, which leads most art historians to look at them and suggest that this is more than likely going to be that stylization, similar to the human with feline head, where they're adding content, they're adding materials, they're enhancing things, using imagination to create something that is symbolic, in this case of fertility, something that is going to be so important to them as they move forward in time. But there's a lot of questions that come up. For example, how can this work be interpreted, the woman with the horn? And that becomes very, very difficult. Also, why is context important? This work has been moved from its original cave. It's now in a museum. Venus of Willendorf, of course, is no longer in a garden. We know where she came from. But when you look at these pieces in museums, you lose the context. We don't know if there were other drawings in the area that maybe were lost. We don't know if there were other carvings or other things around this woman with the bison horn. Context becomes really important because we don't have a lot of information. They're not writing about it. And so it becomes something that we have to keep in mind. These Venus figurines, as I said, are almost certainly tied to fertility. They're almost certainly, to some degree, imaginative. And they are probably tied to human fertility. The idea of pregnant women creating them, yeah, that's definitely a possibility, because who else would you choose under the circumstance? We don't have specialized artists at the time. Very interesting pieces, and the sort of thing that people have written books about, trying to explore the various ideas. I'm just introducing them here so that we can move on to other pieces, but also so that you are familiar with the concepts that are out there in this prehistoric period.